One of our traditions every year is that we go see the play Scrooge. And one of the things that even since I was a little kid, we learned to dislike and distrust landlords. My name is Gary Hagenes, and I started in the leasing business, rental business, 48 years ago, 1973. You really have to come from a concept that people are not going to trust you because you're a landlord, you're a Scrooge. And that isn't who we are. We're about liking people, trusting people, and we want to get people to lease with us because they like and trust us. One of the things we're going to relate with you is the things I've learned about how to get people to like you, trust you, and buy from you. So how do we get people to like us? And the number one thing is finding a common bridge. Sometimes I drive people nuts, but even when I'm standing in line at a grocery store, it bugs me. I love to hear that person's story. And I think the number one key is how to find things in other people that you like in them. If you like somebody, they will smell that you like them. So it's really critical to get people to like you. It's the opposite of what some people think. You have to like them and find things in them that you like. And one of my favorite stories I learned selling cookware to single girls, as I worked on referrals, and I went over to this girl's house, Northeast Minneapolis, and her dad came to the door. I explained what I was doing, and he goes, "She's not interested." So I walked down the sidewalk, and evidently they were Polish, and I'm part Czech, and I said, "Dobry wieczór." And his dad goes, "Come here." He says, "How do you know Dobry wieczór?" And I go, "This is one part Czechoslovakian." Unbeknownst to me, somehow that made a major connection with him. And we stood on the sidewalk and we talked for 5 or 10 minutes. I have no clue to this day, even what we talked about. All I know is we walked back in the house that he said, "She's not interested." And he said, "Mary, come down here." So this girl came down the stairs and he said, "You look at this guy's stuff. He's got nice stuff." And I'd never said one word about what we were talking about. And they ended up buying. And then the next morning I got a call and they said, "We've been thinking about we want to get another set." I interpreted that to mean that they wanted to cancel. And I go, "Oh." And then she said, "I saw a twinkle in my wife's eye. I want to get a set for her." And so my point in that is that somehow my relating to him meant that I cared for him, and it turned into a couple of sales. Now, I'm not saying that you do it from a lascivious standpoint, ulterior motive, but you have to find something sincerely that you like in other people. One of the things I like to do is I like to ask a lot of questions, like where they're from. People say, "Well, what does that have to do with anything?" Well, when you're talking with people from where they're from, number one, it's showing that you're concerned. You're not just talking about renting them an apartment or whatever. You're talking about them as really people. And that's what's really critical. Because we're not renting an apartment, we're renting homes. This is their home. So I ask them questions to find out who they are, because I always tell people, I'm a farmer wannabe. And that always gets a little smile out of people who are from the farm. They go, "That's pretty cool." But you relate a little bit to the farm. Sometimes you're talking to them, and it's amazing what comes out. Everything I've learned in life, I've learned from somebody. And relating back to Scrooge, one of the things that people are worried about is how they're going to be treated. And so we like to really think of ourselves as really caring people. One of the most important things I think in caring is listening to people. And, if someone's talking, if they're going like this, looking at their phone, doing whatever they're doing, you're telling people that we don't care about you. It's really listening with your body, listening with your eyes. And then when they say something, it's asking a question. They mention something about whatever it is, a sport, whatever, it's talking about them. And sometimes I joke around if they're talking about basketball, so I love basketball. I'm terrible at it, but I like it. Or sometimes I'm just relating to them and interacting what they like. Then remembering their name. I read years ago that when they listen to phone conversations, the number one word used all the time was I. People were talking about themselves. Get people to talk about themselves. I can take anybody, as quiet and shy as they are, if I can find their hot button that they like, I can get them talking. One of the things that I like to do, and I learned this again, I was on a sales call. I went through my whole sales call. I didn't even get close to selling. My boss was with me, and I'm packing up. And I went in depressed because I needed money. I didn't sell. Then they didn't buy it, and then I was very depressed. So then I'm packing everything up. My bosses start cracking some jokes, and before you know it, these gals are laughing. Before you know it, they're buying. And I go, whoa. So we get out in the car, and I said, what did I do wrong? And he said, you didn't do anything wrong. And I go, well, you sold them. I didn't even come close. Evidently, I did something wrong. And he says, Gary, the problem is you were like a recorder. He said, we don't want a recording. We don't want to talk about. You have to build a relationship with people. And he says, talk about them. And he says, and learn some jokes. Get people to laugh. And people laugh together, they tend to buy. And I said, I don't know really any jokes. And he said, memorize some jokes on Reader's Digest. He said, if they can tell them in Reader's Digest, you can tell them to anyone. And he said, and the second point is, if you can make yourself the brunt of the joke, nobody can be offended by it. So I memorized lots of little jokes, and people think that this guy's a little goofy, but I'm really doing it intentionally. I really want to get people to relax, warm, and like each other, I've got a picture here that I used to hang in my office. Hung in my office for a long time. And it shows fencing. And so in selling, you're not always going in. I don't know if you can see that or not, but you're not always going in. You ever watch a fencing match? Sometimes they're going in, sometimes they're going out. So going in is maybe showing them the apartment. Going out is maybe telling a joke, talking about them. Anytime I feel things are getting tense, I go out and I talk about them. And then when I want to go back in, you can talk about the apartment or when they want to move in or whatever the situation is. But it's really trying to relate to people in their relational. So to summarize what I'm talking about is that you want people to like you, and to like you, you have to like them. And so it's finding something that in that person that you like, that's who's going to do business with you, is when they can smell that you really like them. So after like me, the next step that I like to talk about is trust me, and how do you create trust? And there's an old axiom I've heard a million times, is that people do business with people, it's who they know. And it's to really expand on that statement, it really means who they know that they trust. That's who people do business with. And I always tell young people two things. One is, in doing things in life, do the right thing for one reason, because it's the right thing. But the second thing is a very, very, very small world. And you think, you're never going to run into somebody again. And I have a friend who was in China at a party. It turns out he's talking to this guy in China, and he was a neighbor of a good friend of his from Bloomington. He grew up in Bloomington, Minnesota. How do you get people to trust you? I like to use the word understatements. Don't over-exaggerate what you can do, undersell what you do. People don't buy the biggest and the best. Not everybody's driving. If you say, we've got the best car, everybody'd argue what the best car is out there. You drive down the road, you see 100 cars, you see 100 different cars. People want to know that they can get good service, they're going to be cared for, and when there's a problem, they can get it taken care of. If you're talking about maintenance, I say, I like to talk about our maintenance staff. And by the way, it's great if you're walking along and run across one of our maintenance staff. You can say hi in front of a resident. But at the same time, talk about how we really do care, and that what our policies are as far as getting maintenance done. And one of the things, this is why it's so critical our buildings be maintained in a good manner, is that you can't tell people we really care, we're really worried about maintenance, and then they will go by broken doorknobs or whatever it is. So your buildings have to be in nice condition. That's going to speak volumes to people on whether they care or not. Tell people that they will get, if normal maintenance, we promise we're going to get to it within 72 hours. And by the way, that's not life or building threatening. If there's a fire or floods or whatever, we're going to be on it right away. But within 72 hours. And by the way, so then if you get it done in 24 hours, you're a hero. But people want to say, oh yeah, we'll get it done right away, and they can't. Well, nobody can get things done immediately. One of the things, like when I'm leasing, to trust me, I never talk bad about competitors. for some reason, it's human nature. If we talk bad about other people, I guess I was raised where if you talk bad about people, you got to be down in the gutter with them. You want to be higher and above reproach. And you say, they're good competitors. If you rented there, I'm sure that they would make you happy. But here's the things that you're going to like about us. Talk about your positive points, but don't put down other people under any condition. I don't care if you've heard whatever you've heard. Talk only highly about your competitors. And, again, I was raised, I remember my grandmother would say, if you point a finger at somebody, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. And so, if you're blaming other people, people go, oh, I wonder what he's like. You know what I mean? So really take a real positive approach and be a person of character. People say that so-and-so became successful by who they knew. Well, that's a partially true statement, but really, like I do business with people, and I've even done business with people where I pay maybe even a little bit more because I know they're going to do what they say they're going to do. I've done business with people where they say they're going to do something and they don't do it. And so it's not what you know, but who you know. Really what they're really saying is it's who you know that's going to perform and they're going to do the job with a touch of excellence. Like me and trust me are critical components that ultimately lead to buy from me. You have to be able to ultimately come to this statement. I would love to have you folks live here because I like you and I know you'd make my job easier because you'd fit in well. And people can smell whether you're blowing smoke in your ear or not. If you can say, hey, you folks seem like really nice people. I'd love to have you live here. And so what are the things that you're looking for? When you answer the phone, one of the things I tell people, smile before you answer the phone. It's almost impossible to be grumpy with a smile on your face. So it might sound funny, but you put a smile on your face and you go, you can't go, hi. When you smile, you got to come across as, hi, how are you? On a phone conversation, a lot of times I like to joke. I remember a phone conversation, I'm talking with a couple of young guys, and we're just kibitzing on the phone and cracking some jokes, and these guys go, I don't even know if we're interested in an apartment, but we just want to come and meet you. And they came over, and I can't remember the result, but it's getting people to relate in some way. And so a lot of times, like when they'll call, it's a beautiful day out, to go, boy, it's a tough day to be looking for an apartment. I bet you'd rather be at the beach, which is true. Or if it's a rainy day, I go, tough day to be looking for an apartment. Bet you'd rather be in front of the fireplace. Or if it's a cold day. I mean, I always sort of relate to them because one of the least favorite things is out trying to find an apartment. Because people, in a way, are trying to sift through whether they'll be taken care of wherever they're going to move. And so you're trying to relate to them that you're a nice guy, you care for them, and you're fun. And people want to do business with people that are fun. They don't want to do business with people that are not fun. So in my phone conversation, I try and use their name a lot. I try and find out what they're looking for. And of course, there's the business part of the conversation. What are you looking for? Why are you looking? Why are you moving from where they're going? A lot of times people say, that landlord never did anything. Now, when you're showing an apartment, walking along, you're visiting with people in the apartment, number one, let them in the unit first. You don't want to walk in first. You're going to watch what they're looking for. They're going to tell you what's really important to them. If they look at the living room or immediately walk in a bedroom or a bathroom, but you're really looking for what they're interested in. And that's going to lead to them. By the way, you don't want to have 3 people standing in the bathroom. Let them go in on their own. And you don't have to say, this is the bathroom. They probably can figure that out. You don't have to say, this is the bedroom. They probably can figure that out. But really, what I'm really doing is I'm watching them to see what's important to them. And by the way, you want to ask questions, what is important to you? Now, the next step is you've done all these things. We've marketed, we've got them in, you've built great relationships. So how do you make them a resident here? And, I wish I could say, here is one thing you do. now it really becomes sort of an art in how you do it. And so I would just say that there's some, questions or statements that I've used over the years, and your manager can help you on it. But so walking back, you're really watching with your eyes, you're really watching their body language. And again, that's with your eyes, but you're really listening to what they're saying, what they're doing, to find out, how interested are they. And again, you don't want somebody to make a decision they're unhappy with, but you want them, and you want to believe that your product, that if they live here, you're going to make them very, very happy. And so what are the things that you're looking for? You're looking for buying signals. They say, can we talk about it for a second? Of course. They ask about where do they park? What's the lawn care like? Or what's the snow care? All those types of things. And that's why it's so critical that, again, this is a team. And in our leasing, it's really important to include your maintenance techs and everyone, because it's all a team. I mean, if you're walking along, you walk past a whiskey bottle and beer bottles around here, you can talk until the cows come home, and it's not going to get you anywhere. You have to make sure that your product is well maintained, well cared for. One of the things that I do is what they call an assumptive close. Is you bring them back and you say, when we fill out your application, we'll get you a credit check. That's assuming they're going to lease. And so that's what they call an assumptive close. Then they say, well, we're thinking about it a little bit. Oh, that's fine, no problem. So these are some closing questions that I ask when I come to the end, where I'd like to find out whether we're going to fill out a lease or not. On a 1 to 10 scale, how interested are you? What did you like about our place the most? What things can we do that are different? What's important to you that you've seen here? And sometimes you'd be shocked at what people say, why they want to live here. So when people try to make a decision, one of the things that I think so often people do wrong is they keep on talking. When people are trying to make a decision, you go quiet. What they call a silent close. One of the things that happened to me early on in my career is I'd be self-centered. I'd be thinking, okay, if they make a decision, I'm going to make $100. Inevitably, they go, we can't do it. And I changed my thinking, because I really believe that people, I don't know why, but they can almost feel what you feel at times. And I changed my thinking to, I hope they make a decision that's good for them. So whether it's that they're going to rent there or not, you're communicating to them non-verbally that you want them to make a good decision that's good for them. And so you're not being self-centered in what you're doing. So to summarize everything we're talking about, I think when you probably started leasing, you thought you were talking about brick and mortar. And like I asked somebody recently, and I said, what have you learned? They go, it's about people. And our whole business is about people caring for other people. Their people, their homes. We want to make it where we really communicate that we really care. And if they don't make a decision to live with us, we still care for them. It doesn't matter. But of course, we want them to live with us, but it's really about people caring for people. And I can't even stress that enough.